I'm happy you're here to join us today for a discussion on CDM programs in the province. I've been doing this program summary for quite a while now. CFF is 3 years in, did a little bit before that in the previous framework. Anyone not heard a program summary or an overview of Save on Energy programs? Anyone completely new to Save on Energy? Please don't be shy. I saw one hand over here. So everyone else has had exposure to Save on Energy? Awesome. Because I am not going to do the same dog and pony show that I usually do with these summaries. What I'd like to do today is feature some of our commercial successes. So I am going to go over the programs with you quickly, maybe 15 minutes. I can make it an hour. Those are the really painful presentations, but I'm going to give you a quick overview, and then I'm going to have a couple of my friends from the commercial sector talk about their wins, how they've approached energy efficiency, where they are at this stage in the game, and I will introduce them when the time comes. They're right here, they're not a secret, but we'll save the introductions for later. We are going to talk about a number of things today, but what I want you to consider is the full spectrum of energy efficiency. As we start this conversation, you consider what you can do in your buildings, what you're doing now, what you're not doing now. Everything from capability building, which looks like energy auditing, energy managers, resources in terms of channel partners, so those not within your organizations, third parties that you might pay to help you, associations that are resources, give that some thought. But the program structure is going to talk about capability building, the types of incentives that are available, and then even things like training that we can follow up on to really enhance our conversations around energy management. When we talk about programs from a Save on Energy perspective, we needed a visual. I needed a visual in terms of how we go through this process. How many people have started the energy efficiency conversation with lighting in their buildings? Yeah, it's pretty common. And it's usually the measure that people start with. It's the easiest to jump into. It gets more complex from there. From a program perspective, ideally, we'd like to see you participating in some of our what we call direct install programs. So if we start at sort of the bottom of this journey, you're going to see things like Pump Saver, which is a local Toronto Hydro program, RTU Saver, and then the provincial programs, which are Business Refrigeration Incentive Program and Small Business Lighting. I ask for a lot of show of hands because I want to know what you've done, what you're interested in, who's participated in a direct install program, either through Toronto Hydro or through the province. Yeah? When I say through the province, I mean provincial programs. I didn't see enough hands, and so that's a good thing for me. It tells me there's a lot more activity to come and that I can provide some value here today. If you have any questions throughout the session, please ask as we go. Yes?
When do we need a direct install? Sorry.
Great. I'm going to say a lot of things that might not make sense. I'm also going to use a lot of acronyms that you won't know. So direct install means zero upfront cost for the customer. It means we come to you, we present the opportunity, say for lighting or refrigeration measures or VFDs on pumps under these programs that I've talked about, and there is zero upfront cost to you. Now let me qualify that a little bit. For lighting, the small business lighting program, it's a cost-sharing model, so it used to be direct install. It changed in 2016 to cost-sharing, but it's above and beyond what's offered via retrofit. Again, probably more questions I'm sparking the more I talk, but we're going to get into the details of the programs. What it means, though, is those are the opportunities where you're not paying anything and you're recouping energy savings and efficiency in your building. So when we get to talking about those programs, please note them down. I'll talk about eligibility a little bit, but I'm not going to get into the fine detail. I don't want you to become eligibility experts today. I want to spark interest about what you can do in your buildings, okay? So that's what direct install means. Once we get through those programs, then I think most people actually jump in at the retrofit point. All retrofit means is old inefficient equipment out, new efficient equipment in, and it's really anything that consumes energy in a building to some extent. But we have prescriptive tracks under retrofit and custom. We want to fit everything under custom that we can. So lighting, VFDs, building automation system, pumps, motors. What am I leaving out, Irfan? He's one of my technical guys. VFDs, yeah. Air handling units, rooftop units. Any major system that consumes energy, we want to look at it for the purpose of retrofit and see what we can put in that's going to consume less energy. Okay, if you're if you have tenants, some of you, that are in food service, even things like ovens, we can talk about heat recovery, we can talk about efficient versions. There is no limit to the extent that energy management should be part of your conversations, both in terms of the building and your tenants if you have them. And then from retrofit, we start to get more complex in terms of the conversation. That's where we get into controls and integrated systems, process and systems. Anyone participated in that program? No, I'm not surprised. Naz has, yes. Naz is here from Enwave. They live and breathe PSUP and retrofit. So we'll get into where Enwave fits into the conversation. And then we have our suite of programs that are operationally based. And Ringo from Cadillac Fairview is going to talk about what he's doing in that arena right now. So let's get into a little bit of the details of programs. Capability building. We want to start with what we don't know. How many people don't know what they don't know in terms of their building and energy efficiency? How many people don't know where to start right now? Oh, I have a room full of experts. This is good. No need for audit funding. If you don't want to raise your hand and you actually don't know where to start, audit funding is one of the tools that our programs offer that can help you. So you can invest in an audit that will tell you how energy is being consumed in your building, what that's costing you every year, and where the opportunities lie for efficiency and what that might look like in terms of payback, cost of the measure, ease of implementation, complexity, etc. And that is an investment-grade audit. It means the quality of information you're going to walk away with is high, and so we pay up to 50% of the cost of that audit. Okay, and you can recruit your own third party to do it as long as they meet the minimum requirements for completing what we call an ASHRAE level audit. Don't worry about the ASHRAE part. Just know that we've got the QA/QC under control. Okay. I'm going through the slides fairly quickly because I actually don't want to take the majority of the time. I want to hand it over to these guys. I will be able to provide a copy of my deck at the end, not at the end of the session, but if you leave your card with me or one of my team members or at the Toronto Hydro booth later on, then we can get you a copy of the deck so you can reference all this good program information. Retrofit, we've talked about it. I think I've said 5 cents a kilowatt hour and 10 cents a kilowatt hour more times in my lifetime than I've actually said my husband's name. It's really embarrassing. So it's embedded there in my neural pathways. Retrofit is the majority of our participation in programs. So it's 80% of our applications. It's somewhere around 50 to 60% of our savings, only because PSUP, when projects are landed in PSUP, they're very big. But retrofit occupies about 80% of our time provincially in Save on Energy because it is that catch-all. So I'd encourage you to think about what can fit into the retrofit program. Where are you spending money in terms of renewing your assets in a building? Even things like building envelope can fit into the retrofit program. We can recoup savings from windows, from tinting, from cladding. So please have a conversation with us. That's just another list of projects and measures that have fit into retrofit in the past. So process and systems I've referenced a couple of times. It's this big bad program that was originally designed for big industrial users, hospitals, complex systems. And the sweet spot that we found in the last few years is CHP projects, combined heat and power. Now, if anyone isn't a part of that conversation, come on in, guys. Don't be shy. You can come and stand next to me in the front. If you haven't heard of combined heat and power, now is potentially not the time to enter into that conversation with respect to efficiency because there is a deadline coming up, June 30th, July 1st, in terms of being able to apply for an incentive. But if you're really compelled about what that might look like in terms of generating on site and reclaiming the heat and using it for efficiency purposes, let's have a quick conversation afterwards because that window is rapidly closing. Outside of CHP, process and systems, as I was saying, involves complex systems. So typically it's industrial purposes, although we have had some cooling plants in the commercial sector apply and in hospitals, et cetera. The M&V rigor with PSUP is high. So it's not a program that you enter into lightly. You have to have consultants usually on board managing your projects for you. And there is an intense level of documentation required because of the volume of savings usually involved and the incentives that are being handed out. But it's 20 cents a kilowatt hour, so it's worth having the conversation if you think that it's applicable in your facility. Don't hesitate to have that conversation. Also bundled under PSUP is the Energy Manager program. This is something I could probably have an entire presentation on alone. It's been a wildly successful part of the program and part of Conservation First framework for Save on Energy. We have one energy manager in the room, Phil Raffi, with Colliers. Any other in the room? Oh, Naz. I'm so sorry, Naz. Twice I've forgotten you. I'll give you your moment in the spotlight. And another energy manager at the back. Great. Who are you with? Sorry? Excellent. So energy managers are funded both, you have two options, by the LDCs or the IESO. And they are essentially resources that are then embedded in your organization and become part of your organizational headcount, if you might. What it means is we are trying to impact corporate culture with respect to energy management and make it integrated into things like KPIs, have a person in staff to progress business cases, et cetera. So it is a valuable resource, and we've seen tremendous success across the province, dozens of energy managers in place to date, probably the biggest success story of Conservation First Framework. Rob, you want to add something? 100 energy managers, and is that ISO and LDCs combined? Yes. Great. 100, triple digits. And we still have funding available. So even though we have 3 years left in the framework, still have that conversation. Energy managers come with a target, but energy managers are never approved where that target is not achievable. So if you have projects and you need someone to sort of champion those issues internally, let's have a conversation, okay? Next is high-performance new construction. Has anyone had the pleasure of working through HPNC? It is a lucrative program, and it is for those that are directly involved in new construction. So if you're an energy manager, chances are you might not be dipping your toe in HPNC, but if you are, what I will say about it is just get in touch with the LDC in a hurry. Obviously, the sales cycle on these projects are lengthy because we're talking about an entire facility being built or large-scale renovation in some cases, and we are keeping up with building code. The program was updated about a year ago, and we are constantly sort of revising the requirements to make sure we are truly chasing efficiency with new construction. And if you live in Toronto and you've tried to drive to work in the last 5 years, you know that construction is heavy in this area, and so we should be capturing those savings and approaching energy management from the ground up. Existing building commissioning is not a well-known program, but it is focused on cooling plants and recommissioning or retro-commissioning efforts. So if the cooling plant was never commissioned properly, then we want to do a recommissioning. If it was never commissioned at all, then we would call that retro-commissioning. Either way, it's about looking at cooling plants in all types of facilities and saying, how can we make this operation more efficient from a standpoint of things like set points, et cetera. So it's not necessarily dealing with, for instance, the efficiency of pumps or putting VFDs on. It's more about the parameters of the cooling plant itself. You have to, in order to be a consultant that works on these projects, you have to have a commissioning certification. Okay, so this is another program where I'm happy to have that conversation offline. Energy managers we've talked about. I feel I've done that justice along with Rob from IESO. OpSaver is a Toronto Hydro-specific project, and this is something that Ringo is going to touch on a bit, even though we didn't fit his projects in under OpSaver. OpSaver was designed for the customer that really has done a ton of retrofit projects, so done lighting, done the VFDs, replaced a chiller, looked at rooftop units, etc., and is now approaching that point where capital investments are not going to go much further in terms of efficiency, but operational improvements will yield results. If you noticed, retrofit is predicated on an investment in equipment, so you have to be investing in something, a piece of equipment that's going into the building. If I'm tweaking operational set points, there is no capital investment, and so the incentive under retrofit might be minimal or zero. OpSaver was designed for no capital investment, but really looking at what's existing and consistently tweaking. So it could be scheduling, it could be set points, it really can be anything within the building, looking at VFD set points, et cetera, anything tied into a building automation system. It can be as simple as behavioral efforts, like daytime cleaning in office towers. You're not going to have a capital investment, so it would yield no incentive via retrofit, but there are valid savings there that are actually quite systemic based on adoption of conservation as a corporate KPI. So we wanted to be able to incent those changes and keep the conversation around energy management progressing to what it should be. It should be whole building. It should not be isolated to what's going on a CapEx line item. This is where OpSaver came in. It's Toronto Hydro only. Now, it was launched at the same time as a program called the Energy Performance Program. Has anyone opted into either OpSaver or EPP? Yes, OpSaver, my friends at Berkeley. OpSaver. Okay, EPP and OpSaver launched at the same time, and so the tendency was to compare them because they both allow for operational savings to be captured. But there are very different drivers for EPP and OpSaver, and the ISO is here. We are here to help you make that decision in terms of what's right for your building if either of them are. EPP was born out of the need to better serve multi-site customers. So I'm opening myself up here, but anyone had a bad experience with an application, the rigor that comes with submitting an application? I should see like hands, I see popcorn hands right now. Yes, we know that the applications are a pain, and they're also necessary, and it's our due diligence required in order to hand out ratepayer dollars in a way that is using them effectively and respectfully. They're your dollars. So we do that, and it requires an application. But imagine if you were running, you were in charge of 200 Tim Hortons stores across the province, what that would look like. Every time you want to do a lighting upgrade, every time you want to replace a rooftop unit, it gets to be a bit much. So EPP was born to be a catch-all. It's a pay-for-performance program, and so once you opt in, you're not eligible for any other Save on Energy program except for energy managers. We keep that capability building mechanism in place. So once you're in EPP, you make all the changes you want, and then there's a true-up at the end of a one-year period. I'm simplifying, but that is essentially the driver for it, is simplification. The crossover, as I said, is operational savings and behavior savings can be captured via both. But we like to compare and contrast them because they really are not the same program and they shouldn't be considered competitive offers, okay? So if you are at a point where you're considering operational savings in your building, there are significant eligibility requirements for both OpSaver and EPP. Have that conversation with us. Talk to Rob, talk to my team. Yes?
We're dealing with highly confidential check.
You have to repeat your question because I didn't hear anything after highly confidential. Just kidding. So the answer is yes and no. We don't need to necessarily fully understand the system that's being put in place. What we need to understand is that the savings are valid and persistent. So if you're going through OpSaver, you're allowed to participate in other programs, which means that if you're doing an N-wave deep lake cooling measure in one building and you're doing lighting at the same time, I've got to make sure I'm not double counting those savings. That's my due diligence as the service provider. But if you're doing EPP, it's a broader M&V, but they still need to know that there's no double counting of savings and that the savings, will they persist year over year? So those are the conversations we need to have. I don't need to know anything that's proprietary, nor do I want to, but if it's generating real, measurable, permanent kilowatt hours in kilowatt hour savings, then I'm all over it. Yeah, so tune into that BOMA webinar, have a conversation with us. My team will be around all day, and so I love that when I hear highly confidential because it means I don't have to get into the weeds. I just have to know that my kilowatt hour savings are legit. Yeah. M&V is not something to be taken lightly, and when I say M&V, I'll expand on that, just like direct install. Measurement and verification is a major component of these programs, and that burden is largely borne on my team, but also on the channel partner community. So anyone in here who is a consultant, has worked for a large entity, been tasked with M&V, you know how seriously we take it. Don't let that deter you from participating. Just know that there are checks and balances that we have to fulfill. Okay. So I just quickly want to go through the direct install programs that I referenced, and then I'm going to stop speaking, at least for about 10 minutes. Pump Saver is Toronto Hydro only direct install program. Essentially, we come into your building, and if you have heating and or cooling loops, we look at the size of the pumps. We look at how you're controlling the flow of water through those pipes. So if you have a throttling valve and it's throttled back, but a pump is full speed driving the pressure up, and then you're trying to reduce it, we're going to put a VFD on that with your permission reduction and you're going to accrue savings and we pay for the whole thing. It's as simple as that. I'll leave it there. If you think you have opportunity for Pump Saver, get in touch with us. We have recruited vendors that deliver this for us, and they are active. And it's been a very successful program in both commercial, healthcare, and very successful in multi-unit residential. Small business lighting, I've mentioned, it used to be fully direct install, no cost to the customer. LEDs are a little bit more expensive than T8s and fluorescent lamps, so it's now a cost-sharing model, but it goes beyond the 5 cents a kilowatt hour of retrofit. It goes up to like 55 cents a kilowatt hour in some cases to convert T8s to LEDs. So if you have a tenant that falls below 100 kilowatt threshold, or you run a business like that, let's have a conversation about small business lighting. Business refrigeration incentive is for the same sort of category of customer. The eligibility requirement is higher because refrigeration automatically increases your peak demand. So 250 is the eligibility, but this is direct install. So everything from coil cleaning to ECMs will come in. We'll look at how to optimize your refrigeration. We go through our checklist, and then we install, no cost to you. And the last one is RTU Saver, which is Toronto Hydro local as well. SBL and BRI are provincial, offered everywhere in the province by your local utility, but RTU Saver is Toronto Hydro only, and so we're getting at those savings generated by scheduling RTUs, but the bonus, and I think this is actually better value proposition, is that we come and do a bit of a maintenance check on your RTU, and we tell you what you can do to operationally improve that RTU and recruit savings, and then we'll give you a Wi-Fi enabled ability to control that rooftop unit. Cool? Yeah? Okay, so I'm going to leave the training stuff for the end. I'm going to introduce Stelios here from Slate, so allow me to read his proper bio. Stelios Mourtzakis is the Director of Construction and Sustainability at Slate Asset Management LP. And that's for the North American portfolio. He's responsible for the quality, delivery, and oversight for capital and sustainable projects. Stelios has 15 years of expertise in architecture, interior design, and project management. So that's his resume in a nutshell. But what Slate has done with us, and the reason that I've invited them to speak here with us today, is over the past, 3-4 years?
That's it,
Yeah. We have 19 closed projects with Slate, 24 active, a total of 12 gigawatt hours in savings, and that's approximately $1.8 million saved in utility costs across their portfolio in 3 to 4 years. Some of that, as I said, is closed, done, and some of that is active, but those are outstanding numbers. So I've invited Stelios to talk about how he's done that, why he's done that, and how all of you can take some guidance on that.
Well, thanks, Jen, for the intro. Appreciate it very much. Welcome, everyone. It's an honor to be here presenting at this year's Spring Fest. I'm guessing most of you don't know who Slate is. Heck, I didn't even know who they were when I first started. So we'll get you up to speed. Slate Asset Management LP is a privately held real estate investor and asset manager. Established relationships through the facets of the commercial real estate industry across Canada, United States, and Europe. Thus far, since inception, we've completed approximately 200 acquisitions and dispositions valued at about $10 billion. Because of the growth, the team expanded to 65 professionals. We were then able to establish relationships through there. Because of the growth, the team was done with 65 professionals. As the company grew, so did our mindset. By observing trends, we knew the market was changing and that the importance of sustainability was a priority. This was important as we needed to capture investor and tenant focus. This came into fruition around 2014 when Slate first acquired the GE portfolio. Since then, many key projects and programs were implemented, which in the end provided gratifying results. Although progress was slower than your typical build-out, each project provided visibility to key members. Projects like certifying your building with a minimum silver certification through LEED or BOMA Best, tweaking and adding additional scope to existing programs like waste management. We were able to divert 83% of waste, which we originally were about at a 60% rate. We're accepting various challenges. We're currently working on a 12.5% reduction of energy over the next 5 years. But one key milestone that Slate was able to achieve was an 8.5 million kilowatt savings by one LED project for 15 buildings in Ontario. In 2017, after completing key projects, we were able to decrease electricity usage by 20%, water consumption by 15%, and waste by 34%. Keep in mind, this is only for 15 buildings in Ontario and under one portfolio. Can you imagine the opportunities that can be applied to multiple portfolios? But how do you get to that utopian feel? I've taken the fundamental stopping points which helped me drive to the finish line. First, idea generation. There's actually two parts to this. You'll need to build your internal team. A diverse experience will be needed for larger projects. The use of accountants, asset managers, operational staff, property managers, and more. From there, you will need to collaborate and build a roadmap. Keeping in mind critical levers while creating your key stops, like incentives, waste and energy reduction, ease of implementation, and financial viability. Second, most important, ensure that when you're building a team, you do not stop at the internal level. Venture outwards and include your vendors, utility representatives, even your contractors. Personally, I'll try to build a relationship with my vendors and reps. You want to be able to have your team work together as one vehicle. Next, baseline, baseline, and baseline. I can't emphasize anything more important. Without a target to reference and compare, there's no understanding of your trends year to year. The objective is to improve your building's efficiencies. If you need assistance, I would seek out a colleague or even hire an expert. At times, I would also contact my local utility rep, like Toronto Hydro.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah. Customer-centric. Sometimes we neglect the end user and the market we cater to. For instance, over the past years, we've observed that tenants in the downtown sector have become more educated in regards to sustainability. The need for certification, building efficiency, and great working environments have become a pivotal point in selecting a site. However, in the suburban markets, we've noticed that this is quite the opposite, where sustainability is much lower of an issue. This could affect various projects and programs from waste management to implementing your capital improvement projects. At times, you may need to build your projects around the tenant's needs. So completing this task will help you develop a risk assessment. Next, know your asset. I'll be honest, I don't even know all the properties or even the pros and cons to them. But engaging your operations team or even your property managers, maybe by a walkthrough or even maybe a walkthrough of buildings, determine the gaps and how they can be bridged. These team members operate these buildings on a constant basis and should be able to provide you with the background that you need. Next, demonstrate. At this point, you should have amassed enough data to present to your investors. Always bring attention to the savings, incentives, and paybacks. For instance, our project, the LED project that we completed over about, I don't know, it was just about last year, I think it was, maybe almost a bit. We provided about $1 million in incentives, a payback between 1.5 to 2 years. In addition, we were able to reduce power consumption by 8.5 million kilowatt hours. Finally, start delivering. Once all of this is completed, you should now be ready to deliver your quick wins. You should tie into your objectives. Go back, compare your baseline with your new results to start a new roadmap. Now, going back and selecting the right team members and reaching out to colleagues and vendors who can help alleviate several rollbacks, like using your local utility resources. Companies like Toronto Hydro can indeed fill in the gaps. Don't be shy to reach out to them. They can assist with power consumption issues, planning, and more. How about a training program for your operations team to help reduce consumption and improve efficiencies? We have several programs that can suit your needs and provide incentives at the end of the program. And finally, my personal favorite, incentives. Who doesn't like free money? Slate typically sits with Toronto Hydro on a monthly basis for planning and implementing of various projects with to maximize incentives. So remember, establish your team, create your baseline, complete your market research and analysis on each building. From there, you'll be able to start delivering your quick wins and reap the rewards. Thanks, everyone.
Do you mind if I go off script a little bit, Stelios?
Yeah, go
Ask
for
you a
it.
question. So I know what you've done in your buildings.
Yep.
Do you want to talk about? Well, I'll list it for. I'll make it easy for you.
Yeah, sure.
So Stelios has jumped into everything: lighting, VFDs, rooftop unit replacements. Phil, what else are we looking at for Slate?
Pump saver program.
Pump saver.
Lighting.
Yeah. Okay. How did? I know you did lighting first.
Yep.
Primarily. How did you decide what to prioritize first and your pecking order in terms of how you approached your portfolio?
Difficult one to do, actually. It's basically what we do is we take the most efficient projects and seeing what we can grasp at without wasting the actual capital funds. Like, we want to be able to be thoughtful and mindful about the actual capital funds we're spending versus the actual savings that you're doing too as well. The big key thing is also incentives. That kind of plays as a big role.
Right.
What are you getting back? Your value, and basically efficiency is number one for us. So rather than going for a certification, we opt to make sure that the buildings are actually efficient. So going from there, we knew that the first one that would probably do a big impact would be lighting. So we started off with that. Now we're noticing changes using our baseline and finding out with our past 2-3 years how the changes have happened. We've noticed that there is still electrical issues where we can actually change out a chiller or a boiler to help reduce that amount that we're on, in pressure on your system. So, it's obviously everybody talks about going for the low-hanging fruit. It's a great idea. Yes, you can do it, but will it actually make your building more efficient? There's some aspects that will make it more efficient, but other ones will not. So that's where we kind of have to make a balance between efficiency, the value that you're spending, and the capital money is pretty much what we want in returns.
Awesome. One last question.
Go for it.
When you're talking about that value, what metrics did you use? It's simplifying a very extensive conversation, but was it ROI? Was it simple payback? Did you lean on anything in particular?
Honestly, no. It's a bit of everything. Especially when presenting to investors, they want to see the entire overview of everything. They want to be able to see your ROI, your payback, even the incentive portions, and even the efficiencies. And then afterwards, what ends up happening is once the project's complete, they'll come back to you and ask you, how well did the project work? We get constantly questions. Did we achieve what we wanted to achieve? We knew that we were going to be in around 5 to 6 million kilowatt hours. Heck no, we did 8.5 million. They want to be able to see, like, our investors completely come back and they actually monitor exactly what we are consuming. So we're able to be more transparent about in that sense. We come out and tell them our waste has been diverted. We've got now from 60%, we're down to 83%. And then from there, we actually value engineer what we can do next. How can we squeeze in another extra 5 to 10% more to be a little bit more efficient for waste, energy, and so on and so forth.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, no worries.
That answer could have taken a solid hour to expand on. Rob, you have a question?
Just a really quick one associated with that. Were there any other benefits that you found as a result of doing these energy efficiency measures with the tenant, with your building assets?
Yeah, no, it's true. There are more better comfort levels. I'll be honest with you. At first, you're going to hear the complaints through the first week. There is an adjustment period. Don't expect that I'm going to put up new lights, everybody's going to be all happy and everything like that. Our tenants, within the first week, needed to do an adjustment, eyesights. You do get the occasional complaints, but to be honest with you, after like a week's time, let everybody settle in. Everybody was coming back to us and saying they like it. It's more of like a natural environment. They feel that. You change out the equipment, everything's more efficient. The flow of air is moving around. You get a lot more cleaner air. It's just not about the values that you're out. I hate to say this, but it's not just the savings that you're doing off the energy, but it's also the quality that you're providing to the tenant. That's very important too. we constantly get tenants, new tenants coming up to us, and we're ready to do a lease, asking us what do we do for improvements. And that's mainly in the downtown sector, whereas in the suburban area, you're not getting that as much, where everybody's more, they want to look at what they can save off of their rent. But downtown, everybody's more focused on the efficiencies, kind of the greening initiatives, and even investors. Investors are very keen on it, and that's where we provide like a comfort zone for everybody.
Great. We'll take one more question, and then I want to get to Cadillac Fairview here.
Are your properties multi-residential or office space, or what's the mix of buildings?
We got a mix. We don't do residential. We've got office towers mainly in the Ontario portfolio, and throughout Canada. We actually just purchased our first office tower in the U.S. in Chicago. In the U.S., we are retail strip centers anchored by grocery, and then in Europe we have we've expanded out to retail and grocery.
The savings that you have here, are they
Mainly office with probably about a 5 to 10% of retail at the base.
Okay, great. So I flipped back here to our sort of journey through energy conservation, energy management. And what I wanted to highlight was that Stelios bounced all over that journey, right? So they jumped in with both feet. They were in everything from the direct install, retrofit. They were even part of our OpSaver pilot.
Yep, that's right.
So they tackled everything at once. Others that have been in this game a bit longer have done it more sort of chronologically, like we've laid it out. And that would be Cadillac Fairview. But I want them to talk about what they're doing now, which could be bundled under OpSaver, but is actually going through retrofit due to timing. But Ringo will talk more about that, and so I'm going to introduce him. Ringo is the Senior Manager of National Energy Operations at the Cadillac Fairview Corporation Limited. His role is to develop and execute on sustainability and utility conservation programs for all the Cadillac Fairview properties across the nation. Prior to joining Cadillac Fairview, he was an adjunct instructor at Ryerson's Architectural Science Department and spent several years as a sustainability consultant and project manager. He's the author of multiple journal and conference papers. He has been active in disseminating practical examples and case studies in lowering energy and carbon footprint from design to operation of buildings. And he's undoubtedly much smarter than me, so I'm going to stop talking and hand it over to Ringo.
So I'm here today to talk about one of the initiatives that Cadillac Fairview is running. And I'm here joined by my colleague Ernest Fung, which is the program manager of this initiative. So we're here to really share the experience, and I like the word journey because it took a few years for us to get here. So this topic that we're talking about would be slightly different than what Stelios was mentioning. It's more on how do we use data. With all the data that we're gathering, collecting VAS and metering and everything that we have in the building, how can we translate that data into useful information? And so that's where we're at right now. Just notice the font is a bit funky here. Essentially, just brief introduction of Cadillac Fairview. For those who don't know us, we develop, own, and operate AAA office and retail centers across the country. And we're owned by the Ontario Teachers Pension Plan. Some of the flagship properties are Toronto Indian Centre, Dominion Centre, Pacific Centre in Vancouver, and Chinook in Calgary. So back in 2008, we have developed a in-house sustainability program called Green Network. Some of you might have heard about it. And essentially what it does is that one of the things that it does is we set internal energy reduction targets for each of our properties. And from 2009 to 2016, our properties hit the mark. On average, we saved 3.3% year over year. It's a remarkable feat, and we're really proud of it. It shows a relentless effort in driving down on energy consumption. But we know that there's only so many LED bulbs that we can install, so many VFD drives that we can replace, and at some point we need to have the operational side pick up the slack. Last year, 2017, we saved 1.6%, which is shy of our 3% target. And so as a company, we have started our effort to focus on operational savings. We come up with an initiative called Energy Smart Operations. So what is Energy Smart Operations? What is this silver bullet, if you will? Basically, it is a platform that will aggregate data in the building. We process it with equations that we write, and it would flag a fault as it comes up. So these faults could be operational anomalies that could impact on energy it could impact on thermal comfort, or even the equipment life. And the way that we look at it is that it's a three-step approach. The first step is really collecting the data, and we have spent the last year and a half in doing so. And we have equations set out in each of our AAA office buildings, almost 30 of them now, to detect these faults. And the second step, which we are at right now, is we have this common tool laid out in all of our properties that the national operations, our team, have visibility on. So we have all the data coming in, and we can have the trends going on so that we can review actual opportunities at each site. At the same time, we're running a training program and educating really all levels of operations in the company to really start appreciating the operational anomalies that are coming up and the significance in addressing them. You know, for so long, we've been relying on replacing the light bulbs to LED, and then the savings will come through. We're starting to realize we want to educate our guys too, so that they can be well vested into making conscious decision when they want to balance thermal comfort and energy consumption. These are the things that we feel like we need to ingrain in our folks' mind, in the boots of the ground, so that this initiative can be successful. And then the third step is a turf that we haven't ventured into. Essentially, it's where do we go from here? And Ernest is really into this as well. And really, how can we leverage the sort of the AI, the machine learning capability outside of the building operation landscape, and incorporate that logic into all the data that we have gathered. So we're looking into that right now. And at this time, you might be asking, what is a fault, really? There's a new term that I think the industry is trying to get used to right now. And essentially, we think about it as a BS alarm. It's sensing a critical failure in the building. There are always nuisance alarm, we know that. But the intent is that if a set point is not being met, if a critical piece of equipment is not functioning, then the alarm should come up and our operator should go and address it right away. It's an alarm. It's something that should be treated right away. A fault on the other side is meant to be a symptom that will lead into an alarm. And the analogy that we always use is that a BS alarm, if you can think about it as a heart attack, fault is all the symptoms leading to it, that it be cholesterol level or high blood pressure. And usually for fault, it always ties in with energy cost savings and also thermal comfort impact. So in short, Energy Smart Operations is a platform aimed to be more of a proactive management tool that would enable all of our properties to operate the buildings more efficiently in terms of energy, reduce thermal comfort complaints, as well as prolonging our equipment life. We have come a long way and to get to where we are right now. And this slide here aims to kind of capture, summarize everything that we have accomplished to date. I break it down to three things: people, process, and technology. On the people side, again, we really want to focus the boots on the ground in educating them and bringing up to the next level, not just trying to get rid of the thermal comfort complaints, not just getting rid of the cold calls and hot calls, but how to do that in an energy efficient way. And so we're having training in spring of this year, and going out to bring everyone to the same foundation. On the national level, we're building a center of excellence. You know, operational analytics is new to this industry. It's new to this landscape, really. We're starting to drive that conversation nationally, and it needs a center of excellence to really drive this momentum forward as a company. So we're building that on the national level. On the process side, we're leveraging all the internal process that we have from Green Network and embedding ESO within it. So then, you know, our folks at the property won't be as managing as much change as they don't need to be, where Green Network is something that they're familiar with day in and day out. We also have processes around having property to share their knowledge and data. This is something that we are working on right now. On the technology side, again, we have deployed this operational analytics platform in all of our AAA office buildings across the country, and 3 more to go this year. And therefore, we have a unified format in gathering the data, and that would come a long way as our first attempt on smart building approach. So as we set out for this initiative, we knew that the technology itself is not a silver bullet. We knew that we need all parties from all levels of operation to be engaged and involved. We need the senior executives to be buying into this because we'll be using the guys' time on a day-to-day basis. We know that the boots on the ground need to be educated on what this is and how this can bring value and how this can also help them achieve their goals. So on the portfolio leadership side, these are the guys that really drive rallying the troops. And they're making sure that the processes that the National Ops team has defined has been followed, and the data sharing and the knowledge sharing is happening within the property and also within the portfolios. On the national side, again, we're setting up that center of excellence, and we're driving the agenda. We're driving the roadmap. We are where we are right now. What does it look like in half a year? What does it look like in a year? How do we leverage all the data, all the investment that we've made into this initiative? On the property side, obviously they're the guys that actually make this happen. We need them to respond to the conservation measures put out by this initiative. So we rely on them on the managing the day-to-day sustainment of this initiative. And the business leadership constantly comes back to us and asks if we need additional resource, or are we taking the most efficient way in addressing the need of the company. So with all levels of the organization really buying into it, it helps a long way. And one thing that we also find very useful is that, to Sal's earlier point, baselining. And having that baselining information, having that saving target, how we're tracking towards that being shared amongst all our properties. It's a notion of gamification. Once you share that data with everyone will look at it and say, I don't want to be the person last on the list. How can I learn from the top guys? And so that really comes a long way in really promoting that positive engagement culture and making sure everyone is on the same page, driving to the same goal. And just a call out to Toronto Hydro, along the way, I think, OpSaver being one of this pilot, I think, in the country, incenting, operational measures, just keeping an open mind on, the next wave that, we feel like, Cadillac Fairview feel like would be the energy conservation measures. We have exhausted our chiller upgrades, we've exhausted the LED retrofits. What is the next wave to sustain our energy targets? And it's interesting where this is, off the script, but we have buildings where achieved the 20 equivalent kilowatt hour per square feet target by 2015. And then we're like, maybe we should stop. And that's the minimum, that's the glass floor that we can hit. But it's actually now trying to strive for 15 equivalent kilowatt hour per square feet. So, and that comes with really tweaking the sequence of operation, looking at our schedules, making sure that we don't have a leaky valve. And this tool here tries to bring that data in real time, detect it, and then send it back to the operation guys right there. So it prevents having that leaky valve, for example, going on for another 2 months and 3 months with it, and the bill comes in, and then we started to freak out and wondering what's happened, and then we found out that a valve has been leaking. So this is trying to address it in a more real-time manner, and Toronto Hydro has been a great partner, and Irfan here is trying to help out in closing off the retrofit application. And we're moving on to OpSaver next. We applied for it, and we're expecting to have the energy management report done in May and June of this year, and we'll track towards hoping to have another 10% getting savings of this initiative at the end of this year. So that's it from my side.
So Ringo's highlighted that sweet spot of operational savings, and due to the timing that they were implementing and also investment in platform, he was able to fit it under retrofit. Actually, it's a much more natural fit under OpSaver. One of the things I didn't mention about OpSaver is it comes with the capability building of funds for a consultant. We require an energy management plan to really drive where you're going with those savings. So there's a ton of money in there to help you steer that big operational ship and figure out where where the opportunities are. We have got 6 minutes. I want to jam a lot into those 6 minutes. I keep referencing poor Naz that I've been leaving out. He's the energy manager at Enwave. We do a lot of work with Enwave in terms of customers that are opting into deep lay cooling. And those projects can, those projects can fit under retrofit or PSUP. So if you have any questions about Enwave, talk to Naz. He knows that work inside and out. We also have Rich in the audience who can talk to you as well. One of the things that Toronto Hydro offers, and more substantially the ISO offers, is training. So everything from investing in Certified Energy Manager designation, CMVP, which is the MMV equivalent, to building operators training, which Slate took advantage of. There is funds available to help amp up the level of energy expertise for your staff, for energy managers if you're bringing one on. Please talk to us about that. Rob, did you want to add anything further about training? I'm happy you said Enbridge and Union Gas because we represent the electricity side of the conversation via Save on Energy, and we also don't want this to be a painful experience. We want it to be efficient. Absolute pun intended. So we want to bring gas companies to the table. Collaboration is a huge part of Conservation First framework. So anytime that we can hold hands with our gas utility friends and water where it's applicable and have that conversation with you in terms of comprehensive utility savings opportunities, we will do that. We welcome the opportunity to talk to you together. If there's one thing I hope has come across today, this is a team effort. We want to help you embed conservation in your corporate culture, and there's no shortage of resources available, and I hope you're walking away with that. And on that note, Toronto Hydro has an applicant representative initiative that I'm going to talk about for like 30 seconds. Any consultants, contractors, service providers in the room? Yeah, this is your shtick. So what this is, we know that the programs are rigorous. We know that there's a lot of due diligence required. We want to make you better at it because we know it's painful, but we also know it's valuable for you to know these programs. And so Toronto Hydro is offering an initiative that you can sign up for free. We're going to train you in the programs. We're going to make you experts at getting applications through the system on all programs. And that includes a little bit of technical training. So advanced tutorials on everything from lighting, non-lighting, M&V, etc. It's all free. All you have to do is go to our website and sign up, and then you're added to our website as being part of the applicant rep initiative once you reach that AR Pro designation, and you can earn badges for how quickly your applications are approved because they're clean and they're excellent, how good you are at M&V, the volume of work you do, etc. So customers can actually go to our website and see that you work with the programs and that you're skilled in that area. I'm going to leave it at that. Here's all of our pictures, our lovely headshots outside of our office at 777 Bay. There's no names. You only know me on that slide. Any questions that we haven't addressed today? So existing buildings for the majority. New construction, there's a specific program called High Performance New Construction. Or if you're doing a major renovation and there's specific requirements like the number of building systems that are being impacted, how long the building's not being occupied, if you're just leaving the shell, that's all HPNC. Everything else is existing building. Good question. Anything else? Great. I'm giving you back 1 minute in your day. You're welcome. You're free to go. Thanks, everyone, for attending.